Welcome to Go a Little Mad, a horror movie podcast. My name is Jason, and I love scary movies.
I'm Briana, and I don't. And this week we are discussing The Silence of the Lambs.
You spook easily, Starling?
Not yet, sir.
He's past the others. The last cell. I'll be watching. You'll do fine.
A killer is on the loose.
Keeps them alive for 3 days. Then he shoots them, skins them, and dumps them.
A rookie FBI agent is on his trail.
He's got real physical strength, cautious, precise, and he's never impulsive. He'll never stop.
But in order to track him down, she'll have to match wits.
I'll help you catch him, Clary.
Believe me, you don't want Hannibal Lecter inside your head.
With the darkest of all minds.
Just do your job, but never forget what he is.
Oh, he's a monster. Pure psychopath. So rare to capture one alive.
So close to the way you're going to catch him. Do you realize that? Oh, Clarice, your problem is you need to get more fun out of life.
You told me you don't spook easily.
You call this easy, sir?
Lecter's missing an arm. Man's a raving maniac. Who knows what he'll do?
Thank you, Clary. Thank you.
Yeah, not quite a scary movie, but I think one Briana was afraid to see all the same.
For sure. So movie credits. The screenplay is by Ted Talley. It's based on a novel by Thomas Harris, directed by Jonathan Demme, starring Jodie Foster as Clarice, Anthony Hopkins as Dr. Hannibal Lecter, and Ted Levine as Buffalo Bill, though he's credited as James Gumb.
James Gumb, like the character?
Yeah.
That's the character's name.
Right. They never say that, I feel like. Are we supposed to know that?
They say it like 4 times, 5 times. You just
doubt it.
Missed it.
This is about a young woman training to become an FBI agent who gets assigned to speak with an infamous cannibal to hopefully get information on... I wrote another cannibal, but then in writing my notes, he's not a cannibal. He's just a psychopathic killer.
Yeah, no, he's not. He doesn't eat people. He
Yeah.
just wears their skin for clothes.
Yeah.
So is that better or is that worse?
Hard to say.
I'm going to argue worse, and here's why. Because there are situations where you could become a cannibal out of necessity. But I am never going to
The Donner Party.
Yes, exactly. I am never going to need to make a coat out of your skin to save my own life.
But let's talk about the Donner Party. Maybe they could have used the extra skin for warmth.
I mean, for all we know, they did.
Yeah. So I guess when both are necessary, it's fine.
Okay, so we are now a pro-cannibalism podcast. Welcome to Go a Little Mad, a horror movie and cannibalism podcast. My name is Jason, and I love eating people.
I still don't. Anyway, so that other psychopath has kidnapped a senator's daughter, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, he's kidnapped and killed like 4 or 5 women before this, but nobody cares until it's the senator's daughter.
We don't care until then, exactly. Yeah. All right, so give us the Rotten Tomatoes score.
96%.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, very high. Now, would you think that is the highest rated movie that we've done so far?
It might be.
Well, I'll tell you, it's tied with one.
What?
Now, you tell me what that movie is right now, or I'm quitting the podcast.
That's really hard because I can barely even remember the movies that we've already covered.
Which is exactly why you should remember this one.
Psycho.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Both of them 96%. That's the highest rating we've covered.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. I think they're thought of as similar, not films, but like in the same light.
Yeah, they're both classics.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how about your flesh wounds?
What can I tell you about Hannibal Lecter that hasn't already been said? Like, this is...
Try.
Yeah. Working on it. This is a character that's been done and done and done and done. The Hannibal television series with Mads Mikkelsen as Hannibal was fantastic, but I will say nobody's ever quite come to the same height as good old Tony Hopkins in this one.
Hop.
Yeah. Anyway, so a few people don't know this, but it's kind of a sequel. Did you know that?
No, but I think that explains what I read as the first sentence of the Roger Ebert review.
Both the book and the film were sequels to something called Manhunter. which was the first Thomas Harris novel and then the first film. Manhunter, not really a big deal at the time, totally different cast of characters. Will Graham, who is kind of Hannibal Lecter's counterpart in the books, he's not so much in Silence of the Lambs, but played a big part in the TV series. Will Graham was played by William Peterson. Does that name ring any bells for you?
No.
You may know him as Gil Grissom from CSI Las Vegas. He played Dr. Will Graham. And Dr. Hannibal Lecter was played by Brian Cox. Does that give you anything right off the top of your head?
Yes, that's the guy from Trick or Treat and the reason why I hate Succession.
Let me read you exactly what I wrote here. Brian Cox, who is currently making everyone hate his stupid guts on Succession.
Correct.
Yeah, but he'll always be Captain O'Hagan from Super Troopers to me. But the film, when it first came out, was not well received, either critically or commercially. It just wasn't really a big deal. But it gained a bit of steam as a cult hit after both this and the subsequent films, Hannibal, Red Dragon, etc., drew a bit more attention to Thomas Harris's work. And when William Peterson kind of came back into the spotlight as Gil Grissom, that kind of put some renewed interest into it. So it's kind of a cult hit now. I've seen it once. It didn't do anything for me. It was fine. But yeah, so it's a sequel. That's what I just spent 45 minutes saying. This movie is a sequel. My second fun fact, not even really about Silence of the Lambs. It's about one of my other things, one of my other favorite things that isn't horror movies. That's Family Guy. The voice of Chris Griffin was inspired by Buffalo Bill.
Oh.
Buffalo Bill, the voice he does in this. Seth Green talked about it. When he went into audition for the voice of Chris Griffin, pretty much everybody else that was auditioning was just doing like a typical like surfer dude. And he felt like he wanted to put a little Buffalo Bill spin on it, and that turned out to be really memorable for Seth MacFarlane. That's why he got cast as Chris Griffin. So
Seth Green made that decision?
Yep. When he was auditioning, that was the voice he used for his audition.
Love that choice for him.
So without Silence of the Lambs, we don't have Family Guy as we know it today.
Life-changing.
Yeah, that's huge. And that's all I really had.
Okay, touch points. I mean, I don't have anything specific for this movie. I mean, it came out, I think, in 1991, right? So I was young. So I obviously didn't see it then or ever, but it is iconic. And there's scenes that I've seen. I know the face mask, which is horribly frightening. But yeah, nothing specific. How about you? When did you see it first?
Well, I didn't see it in theaters. I started going to horror movies young, but 4 was probably still a little much for my parents.
That's good.
So I actually didn't see this until like the early 2000s. Hannibal, the sequel with Julianne Moore playing Clarice.
Okay, yeah.
That came out in 2001.
Yeah.
I saw Silence of the Lambs before that came out because I wanted to see Hannibal. Mm-hmm. This was before like the prominence of video on demand, so I had to like go to Blockbuster. I remember renting it. And yeah, we watched it like on DVD at home. I enjoyed it then. I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times between then and now. And you had never seen this before, just to be clear.
No.
Okay. So Hannibal was its sequel, and then Red Dragon, which was a prequel, which had Hannibal Lecter before he was caught. Mm-hmm. Starred Edward Norton as Will Graham. And
wait, who's Will Graham?
The character I just told you about.
Oh.
That William Peterson plays in Manhunter.
Right. Yes, of course.
Please leave that silence in when you edit this so people know how long it took me to process that question.
Yes.
But, and also had Ralph Fiennes as the Red Dragon bad guy.
Okay.
Fun fact, I was like 15 or 16. That came out on DVD. It was one of the first movies I ever made out to.
Oh.
Yeah, not
sexy.
Is it sexy though?
No.
Is it kind of creepy?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. A troubling sign of the person I'd become to be. So yeah, that's a bonus Jason flesh wound for my touch points here.
Well, I have another little fun fact, which is that this movie came out on Valentine's Day in 1991. So we didn't mean to do it, but we are like on theme.
Yeah.
This movie is all about love.
Wow. Yeah.
And it kind of is.
We had talked about doing Valentine next week, but we felt like it would kind of miss the Valentine's Day boat. But I guess we didn't need to. We've got it covered here. And I guess that just explains why I was so weirdly aroused while we were watching this.
Great. I love it. See, you said you weren't a cannibal, but like clearly you are.
Yeah.
So I actually have another little fun fact. Sorry that we're making things out of order here, but I had to write this down because I was reading some information about the film and I came across this. And at some point in the film, early, with Clarice talking, I was like, I cannot stand this Southern accent that she's doing. And Is Jodie Foster Southern? Is it perhaps a natural accent?
Yeah, I don't...
She has some kind of Southern twang, I thought.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big enough Jodie stan to say definitively one way or the other, but I do feel like she has a Southern accent. Did you look up where she was born?
No, I forgot to do that. But whatever she has is being added to in this movie, and I found it...
She was born in L.A. Yeah,
okay.
Born in L.A.
Well, it was irritating. But
yeah.
Apparently she had to fight for this role because Jonathan Demme, the director, didn't like her Boston accent in the movie The Accused, which, granted, I never like any Boston accents in movies because they are hard to do. They often end up being too New York or...
Too Kennedy.
Kennedy. Oh, they go Kennedy, and that's just... No one's Kennedy but Kennedy.
If you're listening to this and you know Briana, thank God that you never watched The Departed with her.
Oh, it was
because I got to show her that movie for the first time.
awful.
And I love that movie. And I told her how much I love that movie. And she just sat there ranting for 2 hours about Alec Baldwin and Marky Mark's accents.
Well, and Marky Mark is a good Boston boy, and he still didn't do a good job. He's clearly been removed for far too long. I did not love The Departed. But anyway, after meeting with her in person, he changed his tune. He had originally wanted Michelle Pfeiffer, but he was like, all right, let's do this with Jodie Foster. And she actually wanted to direct this whole thing. Like, she was trying to get the movie herself, but she lost that. And so she went for the role instead.
Oh, well, okay. So we've established Jodie Foster, great actress. Maybe don't give her accented roles.
Yeah, guess
Fair
not.
enough.
First thing I noticed is that this movie came out in 1991, and I definitely thought it was an 80s movie. I guess 1991 is practically the 80s, but
yeah, I mean, that's definitely
I just
the 80s.
felt like it was more definitely 80s, but starts off with very theatrical music, not like doom and gloom that I've come to expect with horror. It was just theatrical. Like, we're starting a picture. We're in a foggy forest. There's very large, bold lettering for the cast and the movie title.
Yeah, I actually made a note of that. I love that typeface. Just all business.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not here to screw around. Sons of the Lambs, let's do it.
Again, all very theatrical. Clarice is running through a trail in the woods. She's doing some extra physical training at the FBI Academy, which is it Quantico? Is that where she is? Is that what it's called?
I assume so. That's where the FBI Academy is.
Quantico,
Virginia.
Right.
Yeah.
A man stops her to say that Crawford, her boss, I guess, is looking for her.
Yeah, so let me just pause right there because she is dripping sweat. She's just like working her butt off. She's wearing at least 4 layers. Like, you get a look, she's wearing like a sweatshirt, a shirt, and a shirt underneath that you can see.
Well, my guess is that it's the morning because it's still foggy. So it's probably like chill.
Yeah, it's too many layers though.
For sure. Yeah, I would have been out there in a t-shirt and still sweating.
Exactly.
So she immediately runs back. She's run this whole direction. She just immediately runs back, passing others who I guess are like practicing the course. So the course, by the way, is a lot of running, and then it's crawling and then climbing over all these things and swinging and all this stuff. And I was just like, why does the FBI need to do this? I feel like they're more investigative than show up and fight.
Well, here's the thing. Before they started these training regimens, pretty much any high-profile criminal would just have tires all over his front lawn, and the agents couldn't get to the front door to arrest him.
Oh, so they started doing those tire practices, but then the criminals probably caught on and stopped doing the tires.
Exactly.
Yeah, so where are we now?
Yeah.
She goes inside, and her friend, who at some point, I guess they say her name because she's credited as Ardelia, but I never hear her say their name. Apparently I miss names, though. Says hi to her, and she says, hi, Clarice. And as soon as I heard the name, this was the first time we heard the name, I was just like, chills. I cannot hear the name Clarice without associating it with Hannibal, which, sorry to anybody named Clarice, but that name is completely ruined.
Well, I mean, have you met anybody around our age named Clarice?
No.
The movie ruined it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Clarice walks into an elevator with a bunch of men who are all taller than her. And this movie does a lot of cues. This is just the first one, but this movie does a ton of cues to tell us almost like a subplot of the film, which is that there aren't many women here and that she's maybe not respected by her fellow, I guess, classmates or whatever they're called at this point because of that. Also, there's a lot of camera work to show us that she is small. I did not look up how tall or anything that Jodie Foster is, but there's just a lot of upward camera stuff to make her seem much shorter than everybody else.
She's 5'3".
Okay.
Which is much
Easy
shorter
to
than
do.
I imagined Jodie Foster being like a statuesque 5'9".
Yeah, 5'7" at least, I feel like.
Yeah.
Despite all that, there's nothing really outright except for one scene to indicate that she's like a woman and this is weird, because she does get like this huge opportunity, but it's also not until she arrives on the administrative floor I notice that there's like multiple other women. And that's because women run business. Bitch.
They were secretaries.
Yeah. All that paperwork shuffling, women do that. She waits in Crawford's office, even though he paged her, like, where is he? And on the wall...
Move. It's a power move.
Yeah, probably. On the wall, he has a bulletin board full of articles and crime scene photos of people skinned, eaten, ? But skinned, I think.
Yeah, your face when like they were panning over these shots, you were not happy. You kind of looked like, you know that meme, that guy from Australia's Got Talent, who's just like...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was
I didn't
your
know
face.
he was from Australia's Got Talent.
Okay, if you're listening and you don't know who I'm talking about, just Google Australia's Got Talent shocked or something.
Yeah, and he's the redhead.
Yeah, it's like
You
that
know
famous
it.
meme.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it. Great podcast, makes you Google stuff to get jokes.
Crawford comes in. He works in the FBI behavioral science unit, and this is the direction that she's like interested in going in for her career. He tells her that they're researching unique psychopaths, and he wants her to talk to Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal has refused to cooperate with him, so this is like their last shot to get information out of him or whatever. She's familiar with him. She knows him as Hannibal the Cannibal. Another named ruin, by the way. I don't know if many people want to name their kid Hannibal ever, but like, we're never going to.
Hannibal Buress is doing okay for himself.
I don't know who that is.
But he was named before 1991. He's the comedian who like exposed Bill Cosby.
Oh. It's urgent, so she's basically leaving immediately to go meet with Hannibal, and she asks why. He explains, but I missed it. Do you know why she needs to go immediately? I guess it's because of Buffalo Bill, but like she doesn't know that what she's doing right now is because of Buffalo Bill.
Yeah, I think it's something about Hannibal Lecter is not going to be at this place long.
Oh, okay.
I think he's getting transferred. On her way out, he warns her not to give him any personal information.
Like no personal information or anything, because he is a psychologist himself, Hannibal. So he'll just like fuck with her.
Now, here's a really fun game that you can play if you want. What you do is you get a room full of people and you have the movie on in the other room where only they can hear it. They can't see it. And then on another device right next to it, you have the television show, the hit television sitcom Reba.
Right. What's happening?
And you play parts of Jodie Foster speaking in this scene, and you play parts of Reba McEntire speaking in Reba. Can't tell the difference. You make everybody guess which is which.
Oh.
Nobody will get it right.
This was the scene where I wrote that her accent is just horrendous. It's very thick, and I don't think she keeps it as thick throughout the entire movie, or I just got over it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I wrote. Is that Jodie Foster or Reba McEntire?
Yeah. I wondered, is she even qualified at this point to be doing what she's doing? I almost looked at this as college. I forgot about Quantico being a thing and like FBI training and all that kind of stuff. So I assume she already is. She already knows what she's doing, right?
It's like a theme over the course of this movie that like Crawford loves her. And I mean romantically, but I also mean like professionally. Like he is that boss that's like supporting her for everything. So basically she's doing this because he wants her to. He thinks it's a good opportunity for her career. So I mean, is she ready? Who knows? But she's Crawford's girl.
I also wonder, it might be realistic because the FBI did cooperate with production on this movie. They actually hoped that it would lead to more female recruits. That was kind of their goal with this.
That's pretty cool because that's like 1991 before like that many people were mad about it. So like that's like a genuine effort,
right.
That's not just PR points.
Jodie worked with Agent Marianne Krause and received official firearm training as well as like other FBI training. And apparently by 2002, the FBI received a record number of applicants per the LA Times. However, that's 10 or 11 years later, and it doesn't specify female applicants, at least the article that I read. So I don't really know if it worked, but the article included that sentence as if to say that it worked. So I wonder if they just forgot the word women.
That's weird because that timeline, like that's right after Hannibal came out.
Right.
So
yeah. I don't know. She goes straight to the psychiatric hospital, prison, whatever this is. She meets first with the asshole who runs it, Dr. Chilton.
And this is Anthony Held. He always plays an asshole. Like everything
His
he's
face
in.
is asshole.
Have you ever seen Boston Public?
No.
It was a TV show on Fox,
Yes.
like David Kelly. And for some reason, I watched it when I was like 14. And he was the vice principal, and very similar vibes. Like they're both just like egomaniacs and just weird dudes.
Yeah, so he gives off skis-ball vibes immediately. And he explains that having Hannibal is their most valuable asset, especially because it's apparently uncommon to find these types of people alive. Super weird that he's describing like a patient as an asset. Seems unethical, but whatever. As they wrap up the conversation, he adds, "We've had detectives come in here before, but never any as pretty as you are. She is working. Will you just let this woman work?"
Yeah, and he's laying on the charm, and then he like tries to get her to go out,
Yeah.
Oh, what are you doing tonight, Yeah. And as soon as she says like, no, sorry, I'm flying right back in tonight, he just like drops all of his charm. He is just like so done with her as soon as she says she won't go out with him.
Yeah, it's that guy on apps where you're like, no, and he's like, well, you're a bitch then, I guess. Like literally app guy vibes.
Wait, is that not what you're supposed to say when you've been rejected?
Generally, no.
I have some apology phone calls to make. Yikes.
I wrote that he's looking at her like he's the cannibal and that we've met the true villain of this film.
Wow. It's deep.
Yeah. As they go to see Hanny, that's his name, which is down many halls and corridors and sets of stairs, he says that Crawford was smart to use Clarice because she's pretty and young and overall Hanny's taste. Does anybody want to be his taste? That sounds bad. Plus, he hasn't seen a woman in years. Very comforting notes. As they continue downstairs and through gates, Chilton gives her this laundry list of security protocols. Never accept anything he gives her. Never give him anything other than soft paper. That's a quote. I don't know what hard paper is.
I think he means like toilet tissue versus a ream of paper.
Ah, okay. No pens, pencils, staples, nothing. All this because of an incident in 1981. He had complained of chest pain, so they took him to the hospital. And when they removed the mouth guard, he mutilated a woman, probably one of the nurses. He ate her tongue. They managed to reset her jaw, but she'd lost an eye, I think. And he shows her a picture that they did not show us, which I was thrilled about, but I was also surprised by. It must have been really bad.
Or they just had already blown the FX budget.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe they did that purposefully so that we would think, oh, wow, it must be so bad they're not even showing us. Because there is a lot of point of view stuff in this movie that's purposely done that I'll talk about momentarily. At the entry to the last security checkpoint, she asks to go in alone, and he is fully offended by this because he is a fragile man. And he says, you should have told me in the office so I wouldn't have wasted my time. But honestly, she needed a guide. They went down so many halls and stairs and corridors.
And also, like, him giving her tips to not get her face eaten off.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's wasting time.
That's important, I think. She appeases him, though, and says, well, then I would have missed the pleasure of your company. Possibly sarcastic, but, like, coming off just right. Almost like a bless your heart kind of thing.
That's 100% what it was. It was, I don't mean this, but you can't call me out on it without being a dick.
Exactly.
And I am winning this conversation right now. And I loved every second of it.
And I wonder why she wanted to go in alone. I think it's because she realized that if she went in to meet with Hannibal with Chilton, that it would not have set off them on the right footing.
Oh, 100%. Chilton is openly antagonistic towards Lecter the entire movie. Right. Not to, like, make Hannibal sound like a victim, but...
He's a kind man, though. It's fine.
Is he? So speaking of kind men, though, right before she goes down the hallway, we meet Barney.
Oh, that's his name?
His name is Barney.
I missed everyone's name.
Well, so that's the thing is I don't know if you get his name here. I know him because Barney is a part of the overall larger story of Hannibal Lecter.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, so Barney is just a ray of sunshine.
Yes.
Okay, he's just like a very nice guy. And the thing about Lecter and Barney is that Barney is the only person, maybe literally, that Hannibal Lecter like won't eat or kill.
Except Clarice.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. Spoiler alert, I don't know.
No, he doesn't, no.
Okay.
So when Lecter escapes, spoiler alert, Barney actually gets a bunch of money in the mail and a thank you note from Hannibal Lecter for the courtesy he showed him in his time there. You know, Lecter, like they talked about right before this scene, in the hospital. So presumably a woman who's trying to help him, he just bites her face off.
Yeah.
Whereas there are instances with Barney where Barney will like search his cell. Like Barney, he lets Barney just go into his cell and search him, and he doesn't attack him. He doesn't do anything. There's like a mutual respect there. And Barney eventually, he gets a little bit of a happy ending for himself. He takes that money, travels the world with his girlfriend. The only reason I tell this whole story is because I really like this. Like you get this whole relationship between Lecter and Barney. But while Barney is traveling, he's in Argentina, and he spots Lecter in a crowd.
Yeah.
You know, this is a guy who, again, was very kind to him, didn't do anything to him, gave him all this money that's allowing him to do this. Barney immediately left Argentina, never came back.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not saying I blame him, but I'm just saying I think that really speaks to that they have their entire relationship, but that's just how evil and scary Hannibal Lecter is, that Barney's
I love
just
that.
like, I'm out.
Yeah. And what is all this in? Just the other stories of Hannibal?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, the last checkpoint is 2 security guards, one of which I guess is Barney. And he's the one comforting her, telling her like everything's going to be fine, right? He's so nice. Yeah. And this is where they do this camera work where I guess it's called point of view. I didn't think that's what it was called, but it's when the camera is face on with the person speaking. And so the camera is the audience. Like you are looking at this person right in the eyes. They are looking right at the camera.
Well, it's point of view of the person hearing. So if you're seeing Barney's face, you're Clarice's point of view.
Right.
Because he's speaking to Clarice.
Yeah, but we're like it's the camera that they're looking at. From an article by Danilo Castro on the site Little White Lies, Dem is quoted as saying that the most powerful shot of all is when you put the viewer right in the shoes of one of the characters so that they are seeing exactly what the character is seeing. The article says this is evident from Starling's initial meeting with Lecter. Veteran agent Jack Crawford warns her not to reveal anything personal during their conversation, saying, "Believe me, you don't want Hannibal Lecter inside your head." Because of Dem's camera placement, it appears as though Crawford is not just saying this to Starling, but to the audience as well. Reading this kind of made me think about any present day projects, I guess, that do something similar. And what I thought of was You. So You doesn't do the camera stuff, but it does the narration of Joe talking to his victims, basically, but he's always saying you at it. So it's almost like he's talking to us the whole time. If you kind of think about these 2 characters, Joe, if you're familiar with Joe, and Hanny, they're kind of similar. Hanny is like smart and civilized. He's definitely more unsettling than Joe because Joe's not going to eat you. He just might kill you. But both don't just kill willy-nilly. Like, they don't just necessarily kill anybody, I feel like. Or maybe I'm wrong about Hanny. I don't know. But Hanny connects with Clarice, so she's safe. And ultimately, who Joe connects with isn't safe, but he does have a type of who he's going to go after.
I don't know if I can do 90 minutes of Hanny.
All right, I might stop. Anyway, she goes down a dark...
Sorry.
She goes down a dark, dank hallway, passing, I guess, patients. One is smiling weirdly at her. Others ignore her. There's one known as Multiple Miggs. And I will not say what he said. You can go ahead and say what he says.
Can I can say it?
Yeah.
I won't get in trouble?
Go ahead.
He says to Jodie Foster.
No, to Clarice.
Oh, no, this was unscripted. Okay. Yeah, so he says to Clarice in a very aggressive manner, "I can smell your cunt." Which, okay.
Rude.
Gross. But I will say 2 things about it. One, you know, we've talked about this word. I like this word because it's powerful. Like, that is a word that got the reaction Jonathan Demme was looking to get.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like, that word is going to make you stop and go, that's vulgar.
That's
Whereas, like,
the word.
Yeah. And that's, I appreciate that about it. The other thing is this sets up a laugh out loud moment about 2 minutes from now.
I don't know if it's laugh out loud.
It is absolutely laugh out loud, where Hannibal makes Clarice tell him what Mig said to her, and his response is, "I myself cannot," which is just chef's kiss.
No, I hate it so much. Anyway, all these people are in what, you know, is basically like traditional jail cells. The lighting is not great, but when she reaches Hannibal, he's behind glass and it's like bright. He's standing perfectly still and smiling in this white outfit. He has what I refer to as crazy eyes. Jason knows exactly what I'm talking about, but it's just this, I don't even know how to explain it. I just know it when I see it, and Hanny has it. And I've seen this before. I've seen his face in clips and screenshots, but like, it's a lot. His voice is also scary. And so I have some details on this character inspiration. Now, obviously, the character is not original. This was from a book, but who Anthony Hopkins used to figure out how he would portray Hannibal is a former professor. This is from IndieWire. A former professor that he had used the Stanislavski method for acting from the Royal Academy. He was very charismatic and he was deadly. He would take you apart intellectually. He would just smirk and he'd say, "No, do it again." Hopkins says that Hannibal is a, quote, gentleman. He has finesse. He's not Buffalo Bill. When he kills, it's fast and deadly. So this was the character inspiration that he used, a teacher.
So this was one of his acting teachers?
Correct.
Yeah, you know, I think kind of what I had written here, and to your point about the similarities between Hannibal and Joe, is that I really don't think it's hyperbole to say that, like, this role kind of helped define the modern villain.
Yeah.
You can see so much of Hannibal in, you know, the Joker, in name an iconic villain from the last 20 years, and they were 100% inspired by Hannibal Lecter. It's crazy to watch that and think about that.
Right. Yeah. Any character who isn't just outwardly insane seeming is probably inspired by this portrayal. But apparently Hopkins did this portrayal of his former teacher so well that the professor, which he did name was Christopher Fetz or Fetes, called him to say that he loved the performance and asked if it was based on him. I don't know if that's an honor or not.
What that is, that's like a little dig, because that's like saying your acting wasn't good enough. I don't know that it's based on me. If you were good, I wouldn't have to ask. Known. Now do it again.
Hannibal asks Clarice for her credentials, and he makes her come close to the glass to show her her badge or whatever. He comes closer and observes that it's going to expire in a week, which leads him to see that she's a student. So he's offended that Crawford sent a student. But she appeals to his ego, saying that she's there to learn from him. Smart. This is where he knows that Mig said something to her and makes her repeat what he said. And she does. And he says that he can't. Good for him. But he then reaches up into these little air holes that are in the glass or the plastic, whatever, to sniff. And he says that he says the skin cream that she's wearing and the perfume that she typically wears but is not wearing today. Blech. Also,
I'm sorry, can you just explain to people who don't know you personally what that sound was?
That was me sticking my tongue out because that's gross. Blech.
Gross. Disgust.
Yeah.
Okay. Just, they can't see your face.
They know what the sound is. But a lot of the sexually explicitness of this movie reminds me of The Exorcist, where I feel like they're just doing it for shock value, and it's just, especially maybe now, it's just a lot for me for no reason.
Well, what other scenes other than this one? Like this whole, you know, this and what happens right after this. Is there anything else that really
Hannibal's
fits that mold?
Like weirdly sexual towards Clarice sometimes. And then also the whole scene later with the senator, and he's like talking about her breastfeeding, and he like asks her if she breastfeeds, and everybody's all appalled by that question. Like there's just and what's about to happen in 3 seconds when she leaves.
Yeah, well, I mentioned that already.
No, you didn't.
I said this and what happens right after it.
Oh.
What did you think I meant?
I didn't hear that part. I was blocking it from my memory.
But, you know, let me just rewind on that real quick. I know we'll get there, but, like, why is it such a gross question to ask somebody if they breastfed? You know, shame on you, America.
I knew you were going to say that. It's not, it's not, but I just think, you know what I mean here. All right, there's also drawings on the wall, and they're very beautiful. He says that it's the Duomo in Florence, and she's surprised by his memory, able to draw this, and he responds that memory is all I have. Sad. Poor Hanny.
Poor Hanny? You know, because, like, some of those memories are the times he ate people.
Right. He probably ate someone in the Duomo. But this, to me, shows that he's, like, already trying to get in her head, and our head, honestly, to see that, like, he's artistic, he's well-traveled, like, he's not a psychopath. It's fine. She is here to get him to fill out a questionnaire, apparently, and Hanny suggests that Crawford must be busy trying to catch Buffalo Bill. He asks her if she knows why Bill skins his victims, and her analysis is that the skin is a trophy like most serial killers have. But she points out that Hannibal was different in that he just ate his victims. And with that, he lets her go through the questionnaire. So I guess knowing that he's different and acknowledging it has gained some respect. As he looks through it, he analyzes her specifically about her upbringing. He says that she's just like a step away from white trash and all she ever wanted to do was get out and get to the FBI. She turns it around on him, saying that you see a lot, you should look at yourself, or maybe you're too afraid.
It's worth pointing out that he's wrong here. Her father was not a coal miner and they didn't grow up poor.
True.
And that's something that he gets wrong.
For me, this is almost like a tale as old as time. This is like the law enforcement character who is up against an exceptional criminal keen on psychology and gets them to question their career or their choices or their very meaning of right and wrong or confront their trauma. Like, you know what I mean?
I will admit that it is a song as old as rhyme, but I would argue that, again, this is kind of the archetype
This
for that.
started the tale?
Yeah.
Ooh.
You just happened to, I mean, not started it, but you know what I mean. In the same way that lots of things drew inspiration from Lecter.
Right.
Lots of things would draw inspiration from that dynamic as well.
He does not like what he said, shocking, and tells her, I ate a census taker's liver with fava beans and a nice Chianti, and tells her to leave.
And he does like that, like, famous, like...
Oh, yeah.
You did not like that.
No. As she leaves, Miggs is in his bed in the cell, and now he's very obviously masturbating, okay? And she just falls for it. He says, I bit my wrist so I could die. Can't you see the blood? And then he flings semen at her, and I can't. This is disgusting. I don't like spitting or anything like that in movies. It is always more disgusting to me than like watching someone get stabbed. So this was a next level.
I should have warned you. That's on me. I didn't really think about it, and just my note is, forgot about the cum. Briana is very upset. So this is my formal apology to you.
I think, like, in the pop culture files of my brain, I think I knew this existed, but never saw it, obviously, reenacted in any capacity or even the clip shown. So
I've reenacted it.
So I was shocked and horrified. An old man in another cell scolds him for doing this, and Hannibal calls her back and says that Miggs' behavior was unacceptable. See, he's a nice guy. She asks him then to complete the paperwork for her. So, like, okay, if you really want to apologize, do this paperwork. He will not, but he tells her to go find one of his former patients, Mrs. Moffat, or Miss Moffat, and he insists that this will help advance her with the FBI. Outside, she cries as she walks to the car. She falls into like a flashback of when she was young and her dad's coming home. He's a sheriff or a cop or something. It's a very sweet and simple memory, like nothing happens really. And then cut back to her crying by the car. So this scene of her crying was suggested by Agent Krause, the female FBI agent who trained Jodie Foster. And it was to show the necessary emotional release that agents require. I think this point would have been made more powerful if it didn't have some flashback connection to her childhood, because she can just be crying about this singular experience. It was absolutely awful from beginning to end. She's been hit on multiple times between the lead doctor, Dr. Chilton. Lecter said weird things at some point to her. All the other patients have said horrible things to her. Like, this was horrible. She could have just been crying about that. Especially, this is teaching men that they can cry, but also especially women, that women in high-powered positions can still cry and still be qualified, you know?
Counterpoint. I didn't read what you had read about the FBI agent suggesting this, so, you know, maybe that puts a different spin on it, but I always viewed this as the crying kind of showing like she's thinking about her dad, which means Lecter got in her head. He made her, you know, he asked her these questions about her past. He made her think about who she was, where she came from. And I think it just kind of showed that, like, he was so effective at getting into her head about her past that that's what upset her. She was not even like, not to say she wasn't upset about being came on. I don't know how to say that, but that's how I saw it. But I did not know that was a suggestion. So,
but I accept your analysis. I think you're probably right.
Usually am.
Next is her practicing shooting and like other training activities. Her and Ardelia, the other female, that's the only other one, are running. They're running and practicing codes to each other. A group of men run by them in the other direction and look at them as though they're zoo animals and like laugh. It's like, LOL, women existing where only men should. Later, she is looking at old articles about Hannibal. A call comes in for her to share that Miggs is dead. He swallowed his own tongue. I don't know how you can do that, but they discovered that during bed checks. Apparently, Hannibal had been whispering to him in his cell all day long. That's dark. Clarice says she doesn't know how to feel, and Crawford tells her that she doesn't need to feel anything. Lecter did it to amuse himself. But obviously, I feel like Clarice feels responsible in a way because that Hannibal did this for her. And the question would be then, did he do it for her or did he just do it? So is Hannibal in her head? He's definitely in my head while I write up all my notes. So, success. The manipulation has begun. Something about what Hannibal said led Clarice to believe that he's speaking in some kind of code. Apparently he said something about yourself. Like, I missed the connection to this. The reason why she looks up your self-storage.
So what happened is he told her to look into a former patient named Miss Moffat.
Right.
She was unable to find any records of any patients named Miss Moffat.
Right.
But he told her to look in, he said, look in yourself. And she was like, oh. So she found this place, Your Self-Storage, with a storage unit rented to
a Miss Moffat.
Exactly.
Yeah. According to the manager, no one has been to the unit in 20 years. They struggle to open it, and the manager is old, so he's like, you can come back with my son tomorrow. But Clarice waits for no man. She grabs a jack out of her car. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
And uses that.
Without a hint of irony. Yes.
And uses that to open it just enough for her to slip in, but she does cut herself a little bit. This is a large unit with tons of stuff in it, including an entire car covered by an American flag. It's a hearse, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She goes into the back of it, and there's like a headless dressed mannequin. It's holding a cigarette, and it's in a dress. Something by her in the car is covered, so she uncovers it, and it's a head in a jar.
Yeah, you did not like that.
No. It's a male face wearing makeup. Clarice returns to Hannibal about the head in the jar and the anagram of Miss Moffat, which is the rest of me. He gives her a towel because she's wet from the storm, and he tells her your bleeding has stopped from this like very small cut that she had on her leg or something. So he like smelled the blood. That's normal. She asks about the head, and he asks, why didn't you ask me about Buffalo Bill? And also says the person was not killed by him. So the person in the jar was not killed by Hannibal. He's there just as Hannibal found him, and that his therapy with Hannibal was going nowhere. So I guess it's okay. So because of the makeup and the dress that was on the head and on the mannequin in the hearse, she asks if the patient was a crossdresser. And Hannibal says that he was not in life, so I guess that means in private they were. I don't know. And also says that he was manic depressive. Hannibal then changes the subject and asks if there's a sexual component to her relationship with Crawford. She tells him that doesn't interest her. The question is something Miggs would have said to her. Hannibal says not anymore, which like visibly unsettles Clarice. For this conversation, the lights were initially off, but they now turn on, and she sees that his art is gone. And he says it was punishment for Miggs. He says Dr. Chilton likes to play games. Hannibal then bargains with Clarice. He says in exchange for going to another prison, I guess, somewhere nicer and far from Dr. Chilton, he'll offer like a psychological profile on Buffalo Bill based on the evidence. He says, I'll help you catch him, Clarice. And she suggests that he knows who Buffalo Bill is and asks who decapitated his patient. So she's kind of drawing connections here. She doesn't know yet. By the way, I meant to write this in my notes, but I don't think I ever did. The line, Helloooo Clarice, is never actually said. That's like the line that everybody says when they're quoting Hannibal, but he never even says it.
Yeah, it's Luke, I am your father. Never said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We cut to a girl driving a car and she's blasting that song, American Girl. As she parks, someone with night vision is watching her. Her cat greets her in the window, and as she walks to her apartment, a man is struggling to get a couch into the back of his van. She notices he only has one good arm because the other is in a sling, so she offers to help. He gets her to be on the end that goes in first, wrong, and pushes it in, like all the way in, so she's just fully in the van. He then gets in and asks, hey, are you about a size 14? Rude. And then he beats her. As she's knocked out, he checks the tag on her clothes, which is exactly a size 14, and he says, good. He cuts off her shirt just straight up the back and looks at her skin, repeating, good, good, like as he looks it over. Creep. And then he throws the shirt out and drives off.
Okay, I have 2 notes on this scene. The first is as she's getting into the back of the van, you start yelling at the television.
Of course.
And he said, you're asking to get eaten. Now,
that was before I didn't know Buffalo Bill was a cannibal.
Right.
Not a cannibal.
Not a cannibal. Right. No, but I'm making that point to go with my second point.
I know.
Which, do you know what I'm about to say right now?
No.
As they're driving away, they show a shot of this woman's cat in the window.
Oh, yeah.
And you very concerned for this cat. Are you going to be okay? Do you have food? Meanwhile, this woman who was just kidnapped, you asked for that. That is your fault. But that poor, poor cat.
She's the senator's daughter, okay? She'll be fine.
So the cat will be fine.
Well, it's who knows how long it goes without food. Back to training. She's in a combat session and is interrupted to get called to West Virginia for a, quote, Buffalo Bill type situation with Crawford. She's reviewing files in the car, like on the way, and all the mutilation is done post-mortem, they discover. Crawford says that he shoots them, skins them, and then dumps them in the river. And we see photos of this. Hate it. Crawford asks her kind of profiling type questions for her to practice analyzing who this guy is. And at the end of it, he tells her not bad. So she's getting props along the way. This is good. Clarice then brings up the request from Hannibal to be transported in exchange for his expertise. And Crawford says that he's considering it. She's also realized that she was assigned to Hannibal to actually get information on Buffalo Bill. And she tells Crawford that it would have been nice to know this going in to meeting Hannibal, instead of being left in the dark. And he claims that this strategy was done because if she had been filled in, Hannibal would have picked up on it. I wonder.
I mean, that's pretty smart of Jack Crawford, to be honest.
Maybe. When they arrive at like a funeral home where they'll be like evaluating the body, I don't know why they're not doing this in a hospital or something, but she's once again the only woman in the room and is very much the tiniest person in the room. Again, the camera angles really make a point to show this. The sheriff starts explaining things, and Crawford interrupts him to say that this type of sex crime should be discussed privately. And he actually looks down at Clarice, and they just kind of look at each other and go into a separate room. So Clarice is on this case, but she apparently can't hear explicit information. How much worse is it? She's already seen pictures. She's about to examine a dead body, and she's already had semen thrown on her.
So I don't know what our listeners are going to hear after Briana finishes editing this, but she is full-throated screaming right now.
I'm so mad. It was so annoying. There's a funeral happening in the next room, and she goes like into a trance from the memory of her father dying when she was a child, and that flashback is interrupted by Crawford and the sheriff returning. They go into the morgue. Is it called a morgue at a funeral home? Mortuary?
Yeah.
Okay. and it's just packed with all these officers talking, and she takes charge and gets them all to clear out. They unzip the body from the bag, and Crawford has her lead the analyzing of the body. And as she moves along, there's like Polaroids being taken, and she's looking at the images closely. And on one, she discovers that there's something in her mouth. At first, they say it's common for bodies found in water to have stuff lodged in there, but they pull out a bug cocoon. They determine that this was purposely lodged into her throat. They turn over the body, so like her back is up now. And we see that her back is skinned, right? And it was hard to tell because like the body looked gross, but it had been in water, so it wasn't like bloody and nasty looking, but it was still terrible. Next, Clarice goes to some kind of natural museum to meet with some bug scientists about the cocoon. One of them, albeit badly, but harmlessly, flirts with her because this woman is incapable of walking into any space with men without getting flirted and being hit on.
I mean, there's a reason John Hinckley did what he did. She's an attractive woman.
They tell her it's the death head's moth, which is only found in Asia, so someone must have grown it. And one of the scientists says, somebody loved him. So the killer is a bug guy. Just like I care about the cat, this killer cares about the bugs.
You know, it's really interesting to hear you say that because I have a note later on that specifically says Buffalo Bill talks to his dog the way you talk to our cat.
Cut to a room full of bugs that are like kept bugs, pet bugs. Also mannequins and a woman screaming. A man is sitting naked in a chair. The girl is like down a well in a basement. It's a beautiful space. It's just truly wonderful. Back at the FBI, Clarice and Ardelia hear a news report about Catherine, the kidnapped girl from the van. It's about her being kidnapped, likely by Buffalo Bill. She's the senator's daughter. They had found a shirt, like her shirt, cut up, and that's his calling card. They watch her mother, the senator, plead to the killer to have compassion. She says, be merciful and strong by releasing her. And she says her name, Catherine, a lot. Clarice and Ardelia analyze this and discuss how smart it is because it humanizes Catherine so that he'll see her as a person as opposed to an object.
Yeah, and that's like real too. So if you're ever like in some sort of situation where you're in a well, you just scream that you're a person over and over and over again. 50% of the time it works every time.
And one of the reviews I read, it's not the one I picked, but they pointed out how weird it is that this was done and then discussed, but absolutely had no effect whatsoever because there's no moment at all in the film where Buffalo Bill is even watching television to suggest that he may have even seen this news report. So it's like fruitless, you know?
I'm going to have to disagree with you there. She finds, later on in the movie, he had a bunch of newspaper clippings about himself. So you can reason that if he clips out newspaper headlines about himself, he's probably watching press conferences directed at him too.
Maybe. Okay, then the reviewer was wrong, not me. That wasn't my opinion.
I mean, again, I'm just spitballing here. I am by no means an authority, and I am out of it.
She returns to Hannibal's hospital, and Chilton is pissed because she won't give him any information. With Hannibal, she tells him that if he gives them what they need, he'll be moved to a VA hospital near Plum Island, where he'll have a daily walk and swim under SWAT surveillance. This doesn't seem right. Do VA hospitals even have what's needed to manage someone like him?
It's been a long time since I've been in a VA hospital, so...
And the cost of security for daily walks and swims in the ocean, this just isn't cost effective. Who's paying for this? I don't like it. But if Catherine dies, there'll be no charges or no changes.
Plum Island is owned entirely by the United States government. Let's see. Access to the island is controlled by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security.
Oh.
So, I mean, I guess it's a hospital, but like maybe in the way that Guantanamo Bay is a hospital.
Interesting. Okay. I guess it would be secure then. I stand corrected. He basically agrees to this, but talks about quid pro quo. He says that she has to tell him information about herself and he'll help. But like they're already doing quid pro quo. Like you help me, I'll help you. Now he's making her help him twice. That's not fair.
You know, it's great that like quid pro quo got a comeback a couple years ago. Like it had a hot moment in the early 90s, and then like the end of the 2010s, it came back with a vengeance. Gotta love it.
He comes in hot, asking, what's the worst memory of your life? Okay, cool. She responds that it was her father dying, and he tells her to give him the story and every detail, and he'll know if she lies. She gives it all up. I didn't write it all down because I didn't consider this part of the story important at all. But she says that her mother had died first, So when her dad died, he was like everything to her, and she was 10, so she was left alone. He also says, tell me about Miss West Virginia. Was she a large girl? She says yes. So this is a thing that Bill goes for, quote, large girls. And I would just like to say that size 14 is not that large, but this is the 90s, and the only thing worse for body image than the 90s was the early 2000s. So there you go. She also adds that I guess they've like examined the head that they found in the car, and inside the head was a moth. So inside this body that they found in the river was a bug cocoon, and now inside this head was a moth. So one might figure out that the killer of both people is the same.
Yes. And it is also, it's a very specific type of moth. It's not just like any moth.
Yeah.
It's like one that they know had to be purposely placed there.
Hanny talks about his patient, saying that he wasn't a real transsexual. At the time, there were 3 hospitals that do surgery, and he suspects that now he's talking about Bill, I think. Okay, so yeah, it gets confusing between like talking about this patient who was a cross-dresser and also Bill. But so now he is talking about Bill and saying that he suspects Bill would have been rejected by all of these hospitals that would do the surgery. And he adds that Bill wasn't born a criminal but was made one because he hates his own identity. Again, this is kind of messy, but Bill and his patients did have a relationship. It's suggested by Hannibal that they were lovers. And Bill killed Hannibal's patient and struggles, obviously, with who he is. But Hannibal doesn't really believe that Bill is transgender. Back to Bill. He is at the top of the hole, sending lotion down to Catherine and making her put it on herself. He says, quote, it puts the lotion on the skin or it gets the hose again. After she does it, he says, now it places the lotion in the basket. And I kind of was laughing at this scene because, like, puts the lotion in the basket is a thing in pop culture. Everybody knows that line, and everyone's repeated that line, and they put on a voice, and I never got the voice or, like, what the hell does a cannibal movie have anything to do with lotion? Like, what is this? So it's been fun seeing a couple of iconic things come together for me.
Yeah, there was a point a little earlier in the movie where you turned to me and you're like, is this the lotion in the basket guy? You're so excited for it. It's funny, though, that you were like kind of laughing at it, because as we're watching the scene, like I was thinking, it's kind of funny how Hannibal Lecter, obviously due to Tony Hopkins' performance, is remembered as this like iconic villain. But like Buffalo Bill is a monster. He's an absolute monster.
Right.
But nobody ever really talks about Buffalo Bill because Hannibal like overshadowed him. But like every scene with Buffalo Bill, it just gets worse and worse. And you see that it's not like, unlike Lecter, who is probably worse, but you can kind of sympathize with Lecter in some ways because they set him up to be that way. Mm-hmm. But there is nothing sympathetic about this character. And I find it really interesting, take a shot, that he doesn't really get any due as just a really crazy villain. Right.
Like, this movie isn't about him, but he is the killer in the movie.
Right.
Like, he's a side character, but he's the main character,
Yeah. And it's, like I said, it's probably just because Anthony Hopkins was iconic in his role. So what else are you going to talk about?
So she puts the lotion in the basket, and she's also getting really emotional, like begging to like talk to her mom and stuff like that. And he gets angry at her when she gets emotional, and he's just like, put the fucking lotion in the basket. And I think he's saying it to dehumanize her. So back to that whole thing with the talking to the cameras, saying her name and things like that. Like, he purposefully doesn't address her as even a person because he doesn't want her to be a person.
Or maybe he's doing that purposely because he saw the press conference, and that is he is actively repressing his own nature to see her as a person.
Perhaps. Back at the hospital, Chilton is in Hannibal's cell, like, taunting him, and he says the senator, Catherine's mom, who, according to the FBI, had signed off on the deal about Plum Island and all of that, actually had no idea about this deal, so the FBI scammed him. While he's going on, he left a pen unattended, and Hanny has eyes on that pen. So I guess they're gearing up Hannibal to, like, go meet the senator and talk directly about Bill,
yes.
Right? Okay. We get to see him in the mask. Hate it. At the airport, the cops who greet him on the tarmac introduce themselves and say that they'll treat him as good as he treats them. I pointed that out because it was weird that they even did it. Like, why include this? It's just weird that the cops are like being nice to this psychopathic cannibal.
Well, I mean, they're trying to get on his good side so he doesn't bite their face off.
Yeah. Chilton comes over to sign off on something, but he can't find his pen. I wonder why. The senator greets him. He's offered a deal, but he politely says he will not waste their time and he'll help and trust that they'll do what's right. He tells them Bill's real name is Louis Friend, and he's the lover of Benjamin, his dead patient. Okay, so we do know the patient's name. But he taunts her and asks her if she has breastfed Catherine. This is where the breastfeeding thing comes in. And then he draws the comparison that people who lose legs will still feel a tickle, like where the leg was. And so he asks what part of her will tickle as Catherine is skinned. This is not received well. He is immediately taken away.
I mean, I'm shocked that they didn't appreciate the artistry.
I was confused by this entire next scene, but Clarice is wherever they are now. So Clarice is there. She kind of sneaks past Chilton. He's showboating to reporters about whatever. And she's analyzing the phrase Louis Friend because she thinks it's an anagram for something. And she goes to this museum, ? Hannibal is inside this giant space in there in a jail cell. I don't understand this. I don't know where they are, why he's there, and why he's not just going back to where he was before.
I believe those were his terms. You have to hold me here while we're waiting for whatever in the city. Those were his terms. He wanted to be somewhere classy. He's a classy fella. Okay,
I guess I just didn't think that he would get his terms because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. He just was an asshole.
Yeah, but I guess if you got to wait for that flight back and you already have this place set up.
Yeah. He has a regular cell, so there's no glass or anything. He has chairs, he has a desk, he has books. He is living large right now. The lighting on him makes him look extra scary, though. And she tells him that Louis Friend is iron sulfide, which is fool's gold. So it's another anagram. He starts acting like Crawford to help her get to the meat of this, basically. So he's helping her now. He asks her, what does this man do? And she says, he kills women. And he says, no, that's incidental. Then they go back and forth, and she's making suggestions and he's correcting her.
I just have to pause you. You really, it's all about the delivery. What does he do? He kills women. No, that is incidental.
Thank you. I wasn't even going to attempt. That's perfect. But I wrote initially, before I learned about the whole influence for this character, that he's acting like a high pressure professor. And lo and behold, the character was influenced by his professor.
You're a genius.
I know. One of the things about herself that she had told him initially, last time they were talking, was that when her father died, she went to a ranch in Montana to live with her cousins. And he has become fixated on the ranch and also why she left that ranch. Because it was she had noted that she left there suddenly. So she explains why, which is that one night or one day she heard a strange noise like a child's cry. She crept into the barn and found that they were slaughtering lambs. And she tried to free them, but they didn't move. She grabbed one and ran away as fast as she could, but she was alone. It was cold, the lamb was heavy, and she didn't make it far. The sheriff picked her up, and the rancher was so furious that she left for the foster home in Bozeman, and they killed the lamb. Hannibal makes the comparison that if you can save Catherine, you'll never wake up again to the screaming of the lambs. Okay, I don't get this. I understand now why it's called Silence of the Lambs, because this will silence the lambs, I guess. But this goes back to the beginning. What significance does this have about anything at all? What does this matter?
Jodie Foster, as a kid, heard these lambs being slaughtered.
Yeah.
And she didn't even know what to do about it, so she did the only thing she could do. She grabbed one lamb, tried to save it.
Right.
Completely failed. So now she's trying to save lambs. For the rest of her life, she's trying to save lambs. That's why she's doing what she's doing. Obviously, her father had a part in that too, but I feel, and again, I'm not an expert.
Well, that makes sense.
But I feel like Catherine is that lamb. She has to get Catherine back because she's carrying her. She's so close to the finish line, but she's got to actually do it to silence the lambs.
Okay. I'm on board. You guys, I have an English degree, and part of an English degree is analyzing literature, and I cannot express enough how bad I am at analyzing literature. It has to be then explained by a professor, and I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. So Jason is my professor, and oh yeah, I get it. But also, one of the reviews I read, I think it was the Roger Ebert one, but it talks about how, like, this actually isn't a story about Hannibal. This is a story about Clarice. It took reading that paragraph for me to then be like, oh, that's the significance of her backstory. It actually is important because this is a story about her, even though it's because of pop culture for me. Like, I didn't see this movie before all the hullabaloo. So in my brain, this is about Hannibal. Hannibal is scary. He is the freak. He is what everyone talks about when they talk about the Silence of the Lambs. So I'm like, this is supposed to be about him. Why do we care about her backstory? But it's actually about Clarice. Dr. Chilton comes in and forces her to leave. But I mean, I would think that the FBI would trump whatever he is, but she goes.
Yeah, and this is where I wrote, as you said earlier, Chilton is the real villain in this film.
Yeah. She yells for Hannibal to, like, she says, tell me his name of Buffalo Bill. And he says, Clarice, your case file. So she breaks free from the people who are shuffling her out and takes it from his hand. So she takes the case file that I guess she had handed him from his hands. And their hands graze. And they make a point to show that. I forget why. He has something in his hand. Does he have the pen thing in his hand?
I believe so.
Yeah. And he says, goodbye, Clarice. Later in his cell, he's listening to classical music and being given a second dinner because he's being spoiled for some reason. Lamb chops, rare. So rude. To deliver his food, they have to handcuff him to the cell. So outside the cell, they handcuff him to it. And then they go in to drop the food off. But he has the pen. And what he's using is like a piece of the pen all bent to like break free of the cuffs without them knowing. They set the food on the table, but his drawings that Clarice had brought back to him are on the table. So he's like, watch the drawings. So they put them on the floor right next to him. He just lunges at the officer and eats the man's face off, basically. The other officer gets beaten with his own nightstick, and there's just blood everywhere, blood all over Hannibal's face as he kind of pauses to enjoy the music. And then he grabs a knife and goes toward one of the cops, and the scene ends. Dun, dun, dun. We'll never know what happens to them, probably. Downstairs, there's a bunch of cops, and one of them spots the elevator is moving, and they ask if someone went up to floor 5, which is where Hannibal is. They then hear gunshots and see that the elevator is coming down, stopping on floor 3. In the room where Hannibal is supposed to be, they find one cop propped up onto the cell, flayed. The other officer is down, and he looks bad, but he's alive.
This scene left by Lecter is just, I mean, it's art, but it is brutal. Like,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of the right word, because it is just impressive in how brutal it is. There's like a
it's
flap.
Inspired.
Yeah.
Hannibal is gone. In the elevator, so a bunch of cops are in the elevator, blood starts dripping down from the ceiling, and they then spot on the ceiling a bunch of blood. So they determine that Hannibal is on top of the elevator. They send officers to the next floor to, like, get him out, I guess. But he is on top of the elevator with a gun, but he looks non-responsive. They call to him, he doesn't respond. They shoot him in the leg, he doesn't respond, not even a flinch. From in the elevator, they open the ceiling and the body just kind of comes out. And they basically realize there that the body is one of the cops.
But he's missing something very important.
Yeah. Hannibal is wearing the cop's face. And Hannibal was taken away in an ambulance, right?
Yes, because they found that cop still breathing.
Yeah.
So they called for an ambulance. He's in the ambulance, but it's really just Hannibal with that poor cop's face just draped over him.
Yes. And we don't see what happens, but Hannibal has fully escaped. It's reported to the FBI, and Ardelia tells Clarice, but Clarice doesn't feel that Hannibal will come after her because he would consider it rude. Meanwhile, Bill is sewing with skin. back to Clarice and Ardelia, they're looking at the case file. Hannibal, who last had it, had added notes. And we get more of that camera view of like face to character or camera to character face. And Clarice goes, okay, so they have this whole discussion. Again, at this point, I was like not doing good writing my notes because I was very confused about the conversation, but it was about Buffalo Bill's first victim, who was the third victim discovered. I don't know why that's significant, but it was the first one killed, third discovered. And so Clarice goes to this victim's parents' house. Her name is Frederica. She explores her bedroom looking at things kind of like that you would expect to be significant because of the way that she's very carefully looking around at things, but nothing is significant in the bedroom. And I guess this is kind of another way to make us, the audience, feel a part of this, as like, not everything is significant, but we have to look at everything. There's a cat in the doorway of another room, and it meows, so she goes into that room. And there's a dressing mannequin, like one for sewing. She opens up the closet and finds a dress in the closet with sewing cutouts like on the shoulders. She ends up putting two and two together. She runs and calls Crawford to tell him this, that Bill is a skilled sewer and chooses larger girls so that he can starve them, which will loosen their skin before he removes it, which is fully disgusting.
Yeah, and what makes her realize this is there's like a dress hanging, and it has diamond-shaped cutouts that are identical to the diamond-shaped cutouts on the backs of the victims.
Thank you, yes.
So that's what kind of connects the two dots for her, and that's what, the lotion thing is all about. You got to keep that skin nice and supple.
Yeah, exactly. Cut to Bill, there's music playing. And what I wrote here in my notes was that this reminded me of a scene in Clerks 2. And as I was writing it, I was like, oh, that's because Clerks 2 is actually parodying this scene.
Yeah, I have it in quotes here. Your exact words is, oh my God, this song, this is from Clerks. This is what, I get it now.
Well, because it's Jay and Silent Bob doing it, and I'm not like a big Clerks. I've only actually seen Clerks 2. I've never seen like the first one. And I don't watch any Jay and Silent Bob stuff. I just know that they're weird and they're going to go do weird things. So I was just like, yep, this is just something that they're doing. But yeah, so this is that whole scene, which apparently the actor like had to do a couple tequila shots to like get up the nerve to do this whole scene. He's kind of like dancing around and he's naked, and this is where he like tucks and says,
that's very iconic.
Yeah. We all know what he says.
Would you fuck me? I'd fuck me.
Exactly. Oh, Catherine is taking advantage of the loud music that's playing, though, and calling for the dog. So Buffalo Bill has a dog named Precious, and she has like a bone on a string, and she's just like going for the dog. Outside of a house, they point out to us that this is in Illinois. I don't know why that's significant. So that's outside of a house. We just see a house. It's in Illinois. Then we go back into the house of Bill's inspecting bugs. Cops are circling outside of this house. And so we're setting up that the cops are about to descend upon Bill. Bill hears his dog whimpering. And so he goes over and finds that the dog has fallen into the well where Catherine is. She's using the dog as leverage to make a phone call. And she says that the dog needs medical attention. It probably has a broken leg. I hate this.
Yeah, again, you had more sympathy for the dog than the woman in this situation.
Animals are innocent, okay? Humans are terrible and animals are innocent. The cops use a flower delivery decoy to ring the bell, and alarms go off like a school bell in the basement. So Bill goes upstairs. It's messy up there. Like, he doesn't spend any time up there. He answers the door, and it's Clarice. So wherever the police are is the wrong house.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. I need to circle back on this. So if you were in a well and you were with somebody that had skinned 3 women already, and he was making you put lotion on your skin every day, so you got a pretty good idea what's coming, you think it is morally wrong to use an innocent dog as leverage?
I didn't say that.
That's kind of what you said.
I didn't. I stand by that humans are trash and animals are pure, innocent, whatever. Stand by. But I didn't say it was wrong for her to do that.
You seemed pretty judgy about it.
I don't know that I would have been able to do it because... But I guess in desperate times...
So
I would
You
do
would
it.
let yourself be skinned rather than
I don't know.
use an animal as leverage.
I'd be really sad about it. I would be really sad about it.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh at you. You're so pure. Please stay pure.
Clarice is looking for a Mrs. Lipman. So the first victim, Frederica, I think she was a nurse or something like that. And Mrs. Lipman was a close patient to her. He tells her that Mrs. Lipman doesn't live there anymore, but he recognizes the name Frederica. He asks if she was a great big fat person. And Clarice says, yeah, she was a big girl. So the fat shaming continues. Inside the house, as they're chatting, she finds like a moth flying around. And he tries to hand her a business card. I forget what the business card was for. And she asks if she can use his phone. And they're both picking up on each other at this point. Like you can see it. I mean, she's definitely has, but he has too. And he laughs and says, sure, but she pulls a gun on him and he runs. Now he has a gun right by the kitchen, like on the stove in the kitchen, which is kind of where he was. So I think he does grab that and runs away. She goes into the basement. In the basement, she is breathing heavily. She is shaking. She is very obviously scared. This is her first time doing this. And I like that they made it real. Like, she's not just going to be great at this.
Yeah, but it honestly, it makes her more badass because you see that, like, she's so afraid, but she's still doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She finds mannequins with skin suits on them and finds Catherine. She tells her that she's safe, which is currently false. There's no one here, and no one knows that she's there, right? No one knows that she's there. No one knows where she is.
Correct.
Yeah. Catherine says, safe? Get me out of here. Like, Catherine is like, fuck you, I'm not safe. She says she has to leave, and Catherine is just continuing to yell, like, don't leave me, please.
Yeah, and this is where I get a little anti-Catherine. You know, I'm finally on your side here because it's like she can't save you if you're alerting Bill to what's happening.
Right, yeah, shut your mouth, shut your mouth. Exploring the basement, there's moths flying all around.
I will just say here, so there was a part that I don't think you really touched on earlier.
Okay.
But there was a part earlier in the movie at the academy when Clarice is doing like a drill.
Yeah.
And they're like hostages and she's trying to save them and she fails the drill because she goes in the room and she doesn't clear the back left corner.
Yeah.
And somebody comes out from behind her and holds the gun to her head and they're like, "Bah, you failed." At this part of the movie, you are yelling at the TV, "Don't forget to clear your space like you learned."
Yeah, that's right. Because she wasn't. She was entering every room very panicked, like, like every moment. She goes into like a bathroom and finds a bathtub full of just absolute disgustingness that cannot be described. I don't know if it's a decomposing body or what, but it is terrible.
That's what I thought it was.
Lights go out and Bill has his night vision goggles or whatever they are on. And he is so close to her. Again, camera-wise, we have the night vision goggles on. So it's like we're watching Clarice struggle in the darkness. Like she's tripping over things. She's like turning and like trying to peek around. You can see that she's just trying to see what she can. And he is right near her. He keeps like almost reaching her, but she'll like move slightly. He points the gun at her and cocks it, which she hears because it obviously makes a noise. And she so quickly turns around and just shoots. Many shots. He dead. Eventually the police arrive. They free Catherine. She still has the dog, which is nice. Now, I did wonder, is she planning on keeping the dog? Because I think that even though the dog is innocent in this, it would be difficult to keep the dog because it is a constant reminder of this horror. So what do you think? Do you think she kept the dog?
I think she would have kept the dog. I think I'd keep the dog. Not as a reminder of the horror, but a reminder of strength, I got through that.
I guess, yeah. All right.
And also to make it up to that poor little dog whose paw I broke.
Yeah, true. We cut to Clarice graduating. Crawford is proud. And at the party, he congratulates her. They shake hands and the camera like focuses on the handshake. I don't know why. If that means like respect or something, I don't know. And he says that your father would have been proud. She also gets a phone call. It's Hannibal. And he tells her not to bother with the trace and that he won't come after her because the world is better with her in it. How kind. We see that Hannibal is in a wig and he's watching Chilton get off a plane. He tells Clarice that he's going to meet an old friend for dinner. And he hangs up to follow Chilton. The end.
I mean, honestly, who's mad about that?
I know.
Nobody's mad about
Again, Chilton is the real villain here. It's
100%.
fine. It works out. All right, let's talk about our scores. What was your jump score?
0.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, nothing.
And in some of the reviews that I read, I'm not going to do a review because I had some printer issues and, technical issues are fun. But in the Roger Ebert review, they talk about how this wasn't meant to be a jump scare movie, which, by the way, I also read. So it used to be Siskel and Ebert. They did the reviews. Siskel did not like this film. Ebert loved it. What was your nightlight factor?
0.
0s for me as well.
Yeah, 0 on the nightlight score. But I will say, like, the imagery for the gore was impressive, I guess. Like, I don't know what word to say because I don't want to make it sound like I like it. Because you know me, I don't like gore.
Right.
I really don't. That's not, like, what I'm in horror for. But just something about it was very well done in this movie. And I like that kind of, it stays with you a little bit. Like that image of the guard hanging in the cell. And not enough to keep a nightlight on. But it stuck with me a little bit.
Yeah. I kind of didn't look so much because I really hate the gore, so I'm fine. What's your horror buff score?
9.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I almost gave it a 10. I just feel like I'm giving out, like, I rave. I sit here and I rave every week about whatever movie we watch, so I feel like I had to deduct half a point just to be a real critic. But yeah, I mean, it's iconic. It's not really a scary movie, but it's a fantastic movie.
Disturbing.
Yeah, for sure, disturbing. The writing, the directing, the acting, were all superb. Not really sure you could ask for much more, and it hasn't even aged that poorly. Like,
yeah,
you look at a lot of movies from back then, and some of the tropes seem kind of stale now, and you could argue that maybe if Hannibal Lecter came out just like that today, it would be a little over the top. It didn't even age that poorly. Like, it's just you can't ask for more.
It was nominated for like actor, actress, film, and director, I think, and it was like which is rare for what at the time, I guess, for one movie to be nominated for all, or maybe it won all of them, which is the rare bit. You'll have to Google that to find out what's true, I guess.
That's the second thing we're telling people to Google this week.
What was my Scaredy Cat score? My Scaredy Cat score was also a 0. I had no problems with this, which was lovely because I enjoyed the film, but I wasn't scared. So great week for me. And my Neophyte score, I wrote 7. And that was because I didn't get the whole Clarice storyline thing, and I didn't appreciate it at all. But now, after evaluating a little bit more and realizing that this is actually a story about Clarice and not a story about Hannibal, I give it a 9.
Glad to hear it.
So wipe that face off that the listeners can't see. And let's tell them what our next movie is. What are we watching next?
The next movie we are watching is Host.
I am not okay about this. This was my idea, and I am not okay.
I was going to say, this was 100% your idea. You asked me if I'd ever seen it. I did see it.
Yeah.
It just came out, I think, 2020. It is. It takes place entirely on Zoom.
Yeah.
So, it's fun. It sounds cheesy, but it's actually really well done. It's good supernatural horror. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. Or, listen to us ruin it with half-remembered details.
Yeah, and just to clarify, it's Host. It's not The Host. There is a The Host, and that's like aliens or something entirely different.
That's a sea monster or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not The Host, just Host. It's like Room and The Room.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, well, thanks for listening to Go a Little Mad. Remember to follow or subscribe to us on your favorite pod platform. Like us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Go a Little Mad. Share us with everyone you know and give us a 5-star rating and review. It makes all the difference. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.